Scott was being, in a teaching mode on this. You don't get a ticket into the ICU without being. This child went to MRI for Rett's, for diagnosis of Rett's, and then came back to the ICU because the anesthesiologist couldn't get this kid off the vent. And within 48 hours had gone down into ARDS. Remember, this was inhaled mercury, as we will discuss. And so this child had ARDS on a high-frequency ventilator in the ICU with no nerve conduction and an ileus. So we really didn't have much of a choice, I would have gone with oral DMSA just because of the ease of use. And the funny part of the story was that I had called the Oslo Poison Center and gotten hooked up with somebody they knew in Germany to ship us DMPS, which is available in Germany and Europe. And my pharmacist stuck her head in and said, "I got it, it'll be here in the morning." And I'm like, huh? And she had found this compounding pharmacy and gotten it shipped overnighted to us, so we were able to start the IV prep. There really wasn't another alternative because the kid just couldn't tolerate a oral preparation. We didn't think it would be absorbed. The only thing Scott's got wrong is the mom did have, and the dad both, because the dad moved into the apartment to help with caring for the child, and they both had elevated urine excretion. But the end of the story was that the mom was pregnant during this whole episode, and I thought, oh my God. The baby was born, and while the other child was still recuperating, and we put that baby in and did urine studies and just couldn't find any mercury in the baby. So it was third trimester, presumably pretty well protected, and just the baby just surprisingly had no problems and did not require any chelation.
Did you find the source?
Let Scott finish.
Oh.
So in looking into it, it turned out that previous tenants in the apartment had spilled a very large quantity of mercury into the carpet, and out of sight, out of mind, I guess, allowed it to settle in, gathered up what they could, and allowed the rest to settle into the carpet and the padding below it. And one of the first things the mom did when she came into the house was clean the carpets. And for stains, she was down on her hands and knees scrubbing away, and that's how she was exposed initially. Of course, she also was, as Dr. Banner said, was inhaling some of the vapors from the mercury on a daily basis, but the rash, I think, probably was coming from being right down in their close contact with the mercury. And it turned out that the mercury level was highest down low in the room, where the child is playing on the floor, on the carpet in her bedroom. And so therefore she received a much higher concentration of mercury, a much higher exposure. And of course, because the apartment was severely contaminated, it pretty much, I'm not sure if it was actually demolished, or, do you recall, Dr. Banner? Was the apartment actually demolished, or were they able to rehabilitate? Right. Do we have any questions?
Can I ask a question of Dr. Banner? How do you give the DMPS? What's the dosing?
And I knew that question was going to be asked and went to look it up on Toxicol. I remoted in, and unfortunately, the dog ate my case. I couldn't locate that case. So I'm sorry. How long ago did this happen? This occurred, I believe, about 8 or 9 years ago.
Did you continuously have to give the DMPS as an infusion for days, or?
We followed urine excretion until it went below threshold and then stopped, and we got serial every
Thanks.
You know, we did the IV DMPS while we followed 24-hour urines and just kept sending them. And, you know, you had a 48-hour lag time, but at that point the lab was real keyed into it, knew this was serious business. And so we were following that, and as soon as it got below threshold, we stopped. But at some point in there, we were able to switch over to DMSA. We were much more comfortable with that. By mouth. The parents we treated by mouth with oral DMSA that we got in a compassionate grant because they were broke. And not now, but they were broke then. And they got oral DMSA, and the child did too, as soon as we were able to initiate feedings. But it took like a week and a half before we'd even think about feedings.
Can you tell me if there's any, was there any, was it more efficacious to use the DMPS? Could you, in the extraction ratio, was it higher with that, or was it this equivalent?
You know, at that point, it had fallen so rapidly and so much of it had already been chelated, I wouldn't trust the data, you know, because it was a different time. When we started the DMPS, boy, it was off the scale. It went up, obviously, as we started the DMPS, and then it just steadily came down.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Ray Lee from Vancouver. Just had a question and a comment about the DMPS. Just to jog my faulty memory, but is DMPS also known as Dimaval?
Yeah, I believe that is a brand name for it.
Okay, because we had a chance to use it for a serious adult arsenic poisoning case, and it is available, well, it's not readily available in Canada, but we were put in contact with the Hyaltex representatives for North America who are in the United States, and they know who the compounding pharmacies are, who they trust. But in our case, because the patient was so sick, they also said, by the way, your military has some, can you contact them? We contacted them in the middle of the night. We were able to get intravenous DMPS for our patient within 24 hours.
You know, if you go on Google and type in DMPS and mercury, you'll get all kinds of hits for these alternative practitioners who are chelating people, as I said, for whatever ailment they can dream up. It's readily available, and it turned out that we did have the DMPS overnighted, but there was a pharmacy down the block that had DMPS, down the block from the hospital, after a little bit more legwork.
Do they know what the original source? Why did they have so much elemental mercury?
The question was, why did they have so much elemental mercury to spill? And it's something we run into on a fairly regular basis. People think it's cool, so they collect it. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming, and I wanted to give a special thank you to our expert panelists and our speakers today.